What's happening, hardscapers? This is episode 158 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. And today we're joined by Taylor of Calumma Creative. You can check out his designs at calumma.creative on Instagram. And today we just talk about his business, how he started, and all he has to say about designing landscapes. We dive right into that. And one topic that we cover in this is outdoor lighting. And if you need outdoor lighting, if you're looking for a manufacturer of outdoor lighting, you need to check out InLight Outdoor Lighting. They have incredible outdoor lighting options that I use personally in my business, and I know Taylor here also uses. You can check them out at InLight Design on Instagram for some inspiration for outdoor lighting design, or to just check their products out. And if you need landscaping accountants, CFO services, or bookkeeping services, check out Cycle CPA. They're at cycle_CPA on Instagram. And if you reach out to them and let them know that How to Hardscape sent you, you'll get $200 off any services that you take from them. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Today, we're joined by Taylor Fifield. He is the owner of Calumma Creative Landscapes. You can catch him on Instagram and his beautiful designs at calumma.creative. Taylor, thank you so much for joining us here.
Yeah, thanks for having me today, man. It's awesome. Excited.
Let's get started to get to know a little bit more about you yourself, how you entered this industry, starting from like the initial kind of baby steps into the industry here.
Well, when I was, I think 13 or 14, I got my first job at like a garden center, getting paid cash. $9 an hour was a lot at the time. So that was good. Getting familiar with like some plants and just kind of like working around the nursery. And it was a small company, cute little couple owned it. And that's kind of my first step into it. And I did a little bit of like maintenance in their fields and stuff, and kind of help them build greenhouses and stuff like that. So that was kind of my first touch into the industry.
Nice. And then I know a little bit about your backstory here and how you kind of got into landscaping design. But from there, at what point do you kind of begin to fall in love with the industry, have start to develop your design eye, or does that come later in the story?
Yeah, that was like, I started my first like construction gig probably when I was about 16. So this was a few years after that first job I had. And then I was doing construction, building patios, and every Friday we did lawns, but like it was essentially, construction job. So we did everything by hand. So we got right down to the tools. We were excavating patios, bringing in base by hand, wheelbarrows. Like we had no machines. So it was pretty good to like do it that way to learn, I guess, and then from there, I quit that company and moved on to work for MPS. I don't know if you heard of them before. They're up in Markham.
Oh, no, I don't actually.
So they were like really big in the snow removal industry, but they also have a massive maintenance company and a fairly good construction company too. So I worked for them for about 4 years or 5 years, doing construction again. Started to learn how to run equipment. I had a really good mentor there named Trevor Little, and he's really, really talented. He's a really, really skilled guy. He kind of taught me about the fine details with landscaping, and that kind of really caught my interest. Is like we were doing stuff to make it look really good, thought about every inch of the project. Nothing was slapped in, everything was thought out. So I had a really good mentor to kind of learn how to do finishing touches. So that was really cool to learn from him. And then I went to college, and my mom made me go to college. I didn't want to. I wanted to be a ski bum and move out to BC. Did it for about 6 months, but then I came home, and now I'm, and then she's like, you have to go to college. And I was like, all right, fine. What do you want me to go to college for? And she's like, what about like landscaping design or something? And I was like, all right, fine. I'll try that out. And then I just really enjoyed it. And I was like, yeah, it's pretty cool to draw things and like kind of go that route. And then I felt really good at it. I was not really a scholar. I'm not really good at school. I was never really a school person. Don't really like school. Kind of picked what I needed from it and went from there. But was always kind of good at talking, always good at kind of doing sales. That's kind of how I got through school, was like my presentations, not necessarily the products that I was showing, other than my designs were always good, but I didn't follow the criteria, and I'm still pretty like cowboyish like that nowadays. But yeah, that's kind of like my how I got into design.
Do you feel, just touching on education for a little bit here, do you feel like you really did like grasp something from your education that you were able to transfer it later to your next job and to Calumma Creative here? Or do you feel not like it was a waste of time or anything, but like you could have kind of picked up on these things if you kind of just, dove in head first to say a design position at a firm or something like that?
I definitely think school is a good thing. Like, kids should be at least trying it and exploring it. Not everybody's going to be the same type of student, right? I think that the school system is geared towards kind of teaching kids to be really school oriented and, do everything by the books and that kind of thing. And I don't know if I like fully agree with that for everybody. Some people are very good at that. You might have a kid that'll go to school and he'll be an A student, and, but he or she may not, be the same type of business owner. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of one of those things. Like, I definitely think that school is good. I definitely learned a lot in school, and I wouldn't have really gotten into landscape design if I didn't go to school. And it helped me build like a small portfolio to also get my feet wet with the programs that I was using. I use Google SketchUp a lot, took AutoCAD courses and all that stuff. I don't really use any of those programs. I strictly use SketchUp and Google Layout for all my design work. It's just a little bit simpler. But yeah, like I think school definitely worth to try for kids, and it will open a lot of doors for you as well.
Cool. Yeah, I do get that question actually quite often. With like, you were going to go to school for something, what would you go to school for? So I did want to touch on that since you did bring it up. So from school, where does the story go from there?
So after school, I was still working for MPS, sort of in between school. So I would go to school for, September through whenever the school year was over, June or whatever. And then I would work at MPS. And I guess when I finished school, like my last year, I kind of went there and I was like, all right, like I want to be the designer here. I want to be doing sales. Like I want to be showing you this. And I kind of got pushed around a little bit from some of the more senior people in the company. I was the young guy, but I think some of them wanted to sort of do what I was doing. And I was kind of showing them these programs. And then they were like, okay, well, we're going to learn it now ourselves. And it kind of just didn't really work out that way. So I was getting a bit of a bad vibe from that. So I went to the National Home Show, and I just brought some portfolio work with me, and I just went around and just started talking to all the landscapers there. I was like, hey, I want to work, and this is what I can do, and stumbled across LandCon, and they offered me a job on the spot, sales and design, head first into it. They're like, let's go see what you can do, and gave me a wicked opportunity, and definitely grew a lot with that company. Like when I started there, we weren't doing crazy projects. And then when I left, we were doing like lots of pools and cabanas and, much more high end, interesting stuff. So that was really cool to like grow with that company and kind of put my skills to work there to help them grow as well,
Absolutely. So from that time working with MPS and LandCon, what kind of skills did you start to build that really helped you move on to the next stage in your career, which I assume would be starting Calumma Creative, like from education and then getting that real world experience and then moving on to LandCon and moving through those years as they progressed? What kind of skills were you able to get from that experience to then go off and start your own business here?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I was always really, positive towards doing construction before even doing design, because if you know how things need to be done to be built, it's much easier to understand how the design should work. And you won't be proposing things that are going to be, too hard to build or too expensive to build. You kind of get your roots down by starting in the construction side of it. So that was my first thing, and that's why I had all that experience. School taught me the basics with design principles, how shapes work together, kind of how people should flow through spaces. Just the basics of it is what I really got from school. And then from that, also learning the programs. So learning how to use Google SketchUp, learning how to do 3D renderings, in school they taught me how to draw and I do drawings by hand, but I was always like, I'm never going to do this because I'm not good at this and nobody does this anymore. So I kind of disregarded that. But again, it's good to learn how to do it by hand too. So that was kind of the school thing that I got was, design principles and some programs to use and stuff like that. And then working for LandCon is how I got thrown right into sales. So that was that came really natural to me, talking to people, and doing design and sales is different. Like some companies are structured differently, right? Like with LandCon, I was doing the design and the sales. So I didn't really seem like a salesman, right? It was more like, hey, this is our designer. And I always had their best interest at heart and this and that, right? So it was always like, hey, you should do this and this and this. And I was never trying to sell people on ideas. I was just trying to sell them on a vision and like, this would look really cool, right? So they didn't really look at me as a sales guy. And I think that really helped with, making sales, you know what I mean? So LandCon taught me that, design and sales, estimating. I knew how to do some estimating before LandCon, but it really dialed it in. We kind of, spent a lot of time dialing in how we do our estimates. And then I built a really cool portfolio at LandCon. Love those guys, Jeremy Ofer, shout out to them. It was really, really awesome working for them. And I think the reason that my company has gone so far as Calumma is because of all the experience I had in the past. But one of the major things that gave me a massive head start was they let me use my portfolio at LandCon as my own for my company here in BC. So I said to them, hey, I'm moving out to BC, devastating for them, obviously. But they were supportive and I said, guys, like, if I can use this portfolio, I'm going to be light years ahead. Is that cool? And they were like, yeah, man, you designed and managed and helped us with a lot of these projects and did all the sales. Like, you can for sure showcase all this stuff. You're not in competition with us. You're out there. So good luck. And I built my website using all that. And it definitely got me ahead for sure.
So we're at the point where you start your own business. So you didn't start it here in Toronto. You moved out west and started the business there, right?
Correct. Yeah. Like I built the website and everything in my last year working for them in Toronto. So I started all my branding, had my website done and ready, and had my Instagram kind of started and everything like that. And then that was about like maybe 8 months to a year of building it in that sense. And then I started making all my connections as well. Before I moved here, I started reaching out to different contractors, different companies, to try to, source some different contractors and find out who's going to be a good fit to build everything for me. And that's what I started over there. And then when I got here, I was pretty much hit the ground running. So I had meetings already set up and everything like that.
All right. I got tons of questions now from this point out that I'm trying to keep in my head here. So bear with me.
Yeah, man.
But with that, so today in Calumma, you're doing designs, but are you also managing the projects? Meaning like are you subbing out contractors, or are you just helping the homeowner pick the right contractor for the job and overseeing the project sort of? Like how is that working for Calumma right now?
So I kind of like to call it a landscape builder. So home builders, they typically don't have all their own employees building houses. They have lots of contractors involved, electricians, plumbers, gas guys, framers, bricklayers, everything, right? Like high-end landscape projects are very similar. Like there are companies that can do it all, but most of these companies have a few guys that they sub out to anyways. So to me, it just came naturally to be like, first of all, I love building jobs. Like I don't want to just design them and then hand it off. Like I want to be part of the process. So the homeowner will call me. I market to the homeowners directly, and then they call me. I say, I can design it for you. I can manage it and build it for you. You pay me, I pay everybody else. I buy all your materials. I figure out all the logistics with my contractors, and then that's how we build jobs. So I'm essentially from start to finish the same thing as a design build company. I just don't have my own employees. I don't have my own equipment.
Gotcha. And then with that, how did you create this network of contractors that you know, like, and trust? And perhaps we can get into some not horror stories of any sorts that you may have experienced along the way of working through this? Because I'm sure that must have been a difficult process to really narrow down the people that you might be a good fit with. Because even if, they're a great contractor, you're a great designer, still there could be personality differences that may present problems. So starting with how did you build that network, and what was the determining factor in getting contractors in that network for you?
So Instagram was super key for me, and just Google. So I would do a Google search, find a few names, write them all down, write the names of the owners down, reference over to Instagram, see if they have a page, look at the quality of the work. And then I kind of went from there. My idea was to interview as many guys as I could that after kind of, doing some elimination. So I had a bunch of guys in mind, spoke with them. Some of them wasn't going to work. Some of them didn't want to work the way I wanted to work. So I kind of narrowed it down, spoke with about 5 different guys, and landed on one particular company, Quattro Enterprises. His name's Mike. Excellent, contractor. He's so knowledgeable, so detail oriented, just perfect fit for me. We both get along super well. But I kind of was like, okay, I'm going to get a high-end company in here that does everything start to finish. Talk to the owner there. I talked with that company. I talked with a company that was a little bit more in the sort of mid-range, it seemed, you know what I mean? And then not that Mike was like low range or anything. He was doing really, really high quality jobs, but I could see that he was doing everything himself and he had a small crew. So I was like, this is going to be probably a very good fit for me because his pricing is going to be competitive. And then I can hire him and manage his company and still make a markup for myself. And I knew that his craftsmanship was excellent, so I could produce wicked designs, and I knew he could create them to perfection. So I got prices from these 3 companies as well on my first project. Noticed that the high-end company was obviously the most expensive. The middle guy came in the middle, and Mike came in right at the lower end. But still, I knew his quality was amazing. So gave him another chance. We wanted to price it up a little bit more, blah, blah, blah. We talked back and forth. And then I knew that with Mike and my markup, I would be around the high-end price. So on par with the high-end company. So that to me justified it. I'm like, I do high-end work. My prices are going to be the same as most high-end companies, maybe a little bit less, still probably a bit less than some of the really high-end companies out here. But that gave me an edge, right? So that was kind of my deciding process.
I just want to take a break from today's episode to talk about our sponsor, Cycle CPA. You may have a CRM or project management software in place, but what data are you using to ensure your estimating is accurate? Having a proper accounting setup and accurate bookkeeping done is key to understanding overhead expenses and other costs that must be recouped in your estimates. Cycle CPA is a remote bookkeeping and CFO firm that helps to connect the dots from the financial reports to the hardscape and landscape data needed in order to reach high profits. They provide landscape and hardscape industry benchmarking, job costing, financials by service line, advisory meetings, and much more. Cycle CPA's team of accountants are specialized within the hardscape and landscape industry, and you can visit them at cyclecpa.com, and for $200 off, mention the How to Hardscape podcast. Now back to our episode. We also want to say thank you to Inlight for sponsoring today's episode. Did you know that one of the easiest ways to grow your hardscape business and increase your revenue is by incorporating low voltage outdoor lighting to your projects? Using lighting can take your projects to the next level, make you more profit, and add that wow factor and make your business stand out. As a professional hardscaper, we know you need reliable and high quality products to avoid callbacks and wasted time on job sites. That's why Inlight offers some of the highest quality lights and is the quickest system to install on the market. Their patented Easy Lock connector ensures that lighting will be the easiest thing you install every time. No heavy lifting, no massive machinery, just plug and play. Not only that, but Inlight also provides many educational resources like online and in-person training, installation videos, unbeatable customer support, and more. Everything you need to successfully take your business to the next level with outdoor lighting and beyond. It's one of the many reasons why I stand behind Inlight and many other companies that provide these educational resources to their clients, to contractors, and to help us grow our businesses. So for more information on how Inlight can help grow your business, check them out on Instagram at Inlight Design. That's at INLITE Design on Instagram. DM them to find out how to put more money in your pocket this season. With design differences between Toronto and BC, have you noticed some design trends that work well in Toronto but may not stick too well in BC? And what was the kind of, if there was any learning curve about BC does things maybe a little bit differently than we may do in Toronto in terms of design, style, aesthetics, anything like that?
Yeah, there's a lot of differences for sure. Like topography is obviously way different. Like we're building on mountainsides here. We're building with lots of bedrock. So that becomes much more complex. I haven't run into too much of that yet. I've only been doing it for about a year and a half here, but definitely can see how it can be a lot different. Topography is for sure, though a lot of jobs I do now have massive grade changes. One of the biggest things I found was materials here. We're so far behind. Like contractors are using really, really basic landscape walls and everything like that. So I was like shocked to see that it was really hard to get really nice stuff. So I was kind of like, okay, I'm going to need to, I started doing a natural because natural, you're going to get really nice products no matter what if you go natural. So kind of behind on the pavers, behind on the walls. Toronto, Ontario has much, much more. Like they got Permacon, they have Oaks, they have, all these brands that are just a bit more cutting edge. So that was one thing that I had to kind of get used to here. But yeah, I think it's coming. Like they're going to start getting them here as well. But a lot of porcelain's used out here as well. And then when you think about overall design styles, people are a little bit more West Coast over here. Obviously, we're on the West Coast, but you're going to get a lot more organic gardens with multiple shrubs and plants, and everything kind of grows together. You're going to get a bit more natural vibe like that. I was a lot more into contemporary back home and modern contemporary, so clean lines. But again, being a designer, you had to be versatile. So part of my process is just getting inspiration from the clients, whatever they're inspired by, whatever they like, that's what we're going to steer. That's what's going to steer their design. So I'm not stuck with contemporary. I really like contemporary, but happy to merge into all these different styles and stuff. So the style is just based on what the client wants. And a lot of them are finding my website, so they like my style. So they're kind of like, oh, we like your projects. And that's why it's kind of going towards that more contemporary, modern, clean lines type of style. Yeah.
I like that you mentioned like merging those styles because obviously you kind of solidified yourself as a designer here in Toronto, and you are you obviously like the contemporary, and you're kind of bleeding that into what BC has to offer. And you talked about merging and with your designs, like I've seen your concrete kind of stepping stone walking paths, but with like an Inlight light in the corner of it, and kind of bleeding those two different styles together. That works really well and flows really well into a backyard. Is that where you kind of see yourself in BC? Is that merging of a couple different styles, or is it very much like a collaboration with your clients? And like you said, your clients saw your website, so maybe they might be more attuned to your style and want your style on their projects. Like where does your style meets your clients' expectations? Where do those two meet, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, so part of my design process is getting a very detailed wish list on what they want. So it needs to be dialed into how many people you want at your dining table, how many people you want at your fireplace, how many, do you want to do laps in your pool, or do you want a small plunge pool? These are all like the things that I need really, really, to know, so that I can be sure that I can give them a design that's going to be suited to their lifestyle. But the painting of the design comes in with the inspirational images. So I'll say to them, give me all the details you want, and then give me a lot of inspirational images. So they'll send me pictures that they find on whatever, Google, Pinterest, house, all these different, platforms that you can get design inspo from. And when they send me that stuff, then I'm able to be like, okay, like this is the style they like. I can pick out repeating patterns that I can see and what they like. And then as a designer, I mean, like we like to say that we're super versatile and we're like, very, dedicated to the client, but you also have your own way of thinking and your own way of drawing. So like it does come across like as a style in the end, even though I try not to have a style. Like I don't really like to be like, oh, that's my style. You know what I mean? I'd rather almost like not have a style. Like who designed that? We have no idea. Like that's what I think is good design, is like, it's not about me, right? Like I don't want it to be about me at all. I want it to be about the homeowner. So that's like, but like I said, I definitely have a way that I draw, a way that I think, and it comes across in my projects. And the clients do really want you to put your 2 cents in as a designer and say that, they'll say, this is what we want, but if you feel like there's anything that you want to add or that you want to, make it yours, then go for it. And like, that's when I can get kind of creative, think outside the box and whatnot.
Definitely. With you did bring up a couple of phrases before that I want you to dissect a little bit for our audience here. I'll just say the two of them now to allow you some time to think about what you want to talk about, because this is a very open-ended question for you. But how you mentioned how your education helped you think about how shapes can work together, as well as how people flow through spaces. So can you dissect those two phrases down for us, and what does that mean to you, and how does that play into designing a backyard space?
Yeah, so the way people flow through spaces, that all kind of comes from, again, every design is going to be unique to itself, to an extent, the property and the wish list and everything like that. But I'll usually start a design off by placing these major spaces that they want. So it'll be like, okay, dining area will be roughly here. This space will be roughly here. This space will be roughly here. And then you connect these spaces in the most, logical way that you can. And it's hard to teach it without kind of showing and drawing at the same time. But you want to make sure that people are able to walk through the space uninterrupted, and then you just kind of create your lines like that. So having, design principles that you've learned or that I learned in school is also helpful for that, because the other part that you're talking about with how shapes interact together is there's certain ways that you can draw shapes that will work and certain ways that it won't work, right? And not everybody knows that, and not everybody can see it. But a designer that's experienced is going to be able to put together shapes in a really cool, funky way and a fun way, but also have people move through the space at the same time. So it's all part of this like sort of overall game you're playing as you're trying to organize the space together. So it's a lot of creativity comes into play and everything like that. But yeah.
When it comes to like flowing through a space, have you created almost like your own principles in terms of, what a design typically may look like in terms of spaces? So for example, an outdoor kitchen might be really close to the house because most of the cooking may come from the indoor kitchen to the outdoor kitchen, and then followed maybe by like a swimming pool with a seating area with a fire pit in the background, because that might make sense for people to flow through that space. Or does it totally depend on client expectations, or does it just depend on the space, or is it like all of the above here?
It's definitely all of the above. There are definitely some things that people would choose, like you said, kitchen's close to the house. Like I always ask people that question, be like, most people want me to draw the kitchen right near the house for easy access to come out and barbecue if it's raining or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I said, that doesn't mean you have to do it like that. Like, do you want your kitchen right by the house, or do you want your kitchen somewhere else? And I kind of let them choose that. And I'd be fine if it were my house to put a kitchen not so close to the house, because then you're kind of out away from the house and you're in a new space to do that, right? So, every design can work based on what that person wants and how that person wants to use their space. And then what was the other part of that question there? Sorry.
I can't quite remember right now. That covers like the basic, which leads me to my next question here for you is, once you do have a client reach out to you and wanting to create a consultation with you, and you go out and you're talking with them, how are you what kind of questions are you asking them to see what you might start to create for them in their space?
Yeah, definitely during like an initial on-site well, I mean, I always do phone consults before I'll go anywhere in person just to get an idea of kind of their wish list and stuff. And I'll sort of set expectations before I go to anyone's house. Especially when it comes to design, it's like we don't come there to give ideas and to just chat with people. Like it's, time's very important right now, and there's a lot of people calling and everything. So we really have to dedicate our time, to the people that are really serious about building these things. But when you go and meet somebody, walking through the space is a really good way for them to be able to express to you, like, what they envision. And the best designs that I've ever done are always with clients that have a very good idea of what they want. And they have a very good idea of where they want things and the style that they like as well, because like that shows somebody who's really cares about what they're doing here, and they put a lot of time and thought into it. So people that leave it all up to the designer, it's not really a good way to do it, in my opinion. Like I've had clients in the past be like, we don't know what we want, and like they won't even tell me if they want like a dining area or anything like that. And I tried it once, and I was like, I'm never going to do this again, because it's just like it opens you up to revisions, like revision. You got to charge for all that, because it's like you didn't give me anything to go off of, so we have to, So definitely having a client that knows what they want is going to be like a super good way to go about it. And those on-site consults really show, how the space flows and like all the different heights that may be involved. And, it can be as a complex backyard or it could be a simple backyard, but everybody has what they want. And usually, have a decent idea of what they want to do there.
So when dealing with a client that you mentioned that for the most part, you won't even take on a client that doesn't know what they want. But for some advice for dealing with a client that doesn't know what they want, or even somewhere in between that, those two kind of spectrums that, they know exactly what they want, they don't know what they want. How would you go about, poking and prodding at that client to get a better idea of what they kind of envision their space to be, in terms of, well, you don't know what you want. Well, do you want a pool? No. Do you want an outdoor kitchen? Oh, yeah, that might sound good. Like, how do you go about kind of getting that information out of them if they're kind of reluctant to give you that information?
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's like people know what they don't want for sure, like a lot of the time, but they and when you prod them on things that they might want, then you get exactly kind of what you said. They might be like, oh, maybe that would work, right? So that is a good way to go. Like if somebody's like, I have no clue what I want, I usually just start to go with all the big items. I'll be like, do you want a pool house? Do you want a pool? And if they're like, no, I'll be like, okay, well, do you want a hot tub? No. Do you want a water feature? Oh, maybe a water feature. And exactly like you said. I mean, that's pretty much it. You can give them all the things that people generally will build in their backyards, and then they can kind of start to dial it in there. Yeah.
Gotcha. And then what about like coming down to the details, like product choosing, colors, shapes, sizes, textures? Where does that fit into the whole process? Is it like that first consultation, you've got an idea of what they want and you're sketching out the idea, the concept, but not necessarily those details? I guess just to break this down easier, what's that process after that initial consultation?
So I don't bring anything with me to any consults. I know a lot of contractors, and this may work for them, it just wasn't my style, is to bring multiple catalogs and show them samples and all this stuff. And to me, like that isn't even important on the first day, not even close. Like that is like later on. First, you got to get your shapes down. You got to get your patio sizes down, your deck sizes and everything like that. And then you can get into the gritty of the materials. So my material selection always kind of stems again from those inspirational images that they send me. So I'm going to look at the pictures they send me, and I'm going to be able to tell right away if they're going to like smooth products or maybe some textured or maybe a combination, or if they're going to like natural stone, or if they're going to want more clean slate, modern products. So those are all ways that, the inspirational images are really going to choose that. And then when I'm drawing it in 3D, that's when I'll be picking and choosing all these things for them and showing it to them. Be like, hey, listen, I'm thinking we use this stone for the walls, this countertop, this flooring, with this kind of decking. And then we'll do your pool in this color here. So like, this is your palette. Like, what do you think of this? And then sometimes they'll be like, yeah, we like that. Or be like, oh no, we like that, but we don't like this. Like, and then I'll just click and change it like on the spot. Like, okay, this is smooth. Okay. And that's a different color here. That's a charcoal border. What do you think? And you can just really do it all in SketchUp, like super, super easy. So people can really see it before they pull the trigger on anything. And then when they see it in 3D, they really know if they like it or not. Then once they're like, yeah, we think this is what we want, then I'll go out and grab samples and bring them and be like, this is actually what it looks like. And then they'll sign off on it at that point, or they'll modify it from there.
Gotcha. So choosing that initial palette, those initial textures, what goes into that for you? Or is it just a matter of when you're in the design process, this is kind of what's going through your head with that? Or do you have some sort of process in terms of choosing those palettes, choosing those textures for that specific property, that specific house?
Yeah, a lot of the time the architecture comes into play when it comes to style of pavers or style of walls and color as well. But color is very personal to every person, right? So I don't like to push colors on people. I like to show them what I like. And then if they like it, great. If they want to change it, that's great too. Sometimes people really like a color that I really don't like. So it's, I can steer them if colors aren't working together from a design standpoint, like because there are sort of some rules and stuff, right? But I steer them in the right direction in that sense. But it's very personal for them to choose that stuff. But using my experience and showing them, hey, these are 5 things in the palette that work really well together. Usually that's a good enough tool. And when it comes to like picking materials and stuff like that, it's I don't really have a system. I just kind of every job that I'm doing it. I might, have some inspiration from something and be like, oh, this actually looks really cool. And I'm starting to use a lot of textures now, like, where you have 5 or 6 different textures and colors that are all kind of playing together and complementing each other, because you can create an overall palette that looks so cool with multiple colors and textures. And it's just like much more impressive when you're staying or looking at all these things tie together. It's really, really interesting like that.
What's one design that you've done that has really impressed you yourself, where you've gone into a project and by the end of it, you've kind of shocked yourself in how well everything has kind of come together, and it just ties into the property really well?
I just did most of the projects I've done here in BC so far have been that. Like at the end, I'm like, damn, like these are looking really good. And particularly the Lynn Valley project. I just did a job in an area called Lynn Valley. We built an infinity pool, and we did a deck, we did a bunch of stonework, a big pergola, and those colors came together so well because we did an Ipe deck, and then we did natural stone copings that are kind of like, I don't know what the Ontario version is called. I think it's antique black, like one of those like Oakville stone or Bass or something. But the finish on it was really marbly, but in the charcoal tones. And then for the stone veneer on the facings of the stairs and the walls, it was like this really tiny natural stone pieces. They're like this big and like maybe that big. So like tons of them across the kitchen. And they were in the charcoal colors and they had a bunch of rust in them. So that went perfect with the copings. That went perfect with the rusty Ipe. And then the countertop we chose for that was decked in. And we went with like a white countertop that had like a rusty vein in it. So that pulled that together. The pergola we built on top was like painted white. So that was all tying in there. And then the pavers were also in like that charcoal tone. So like the project like became so vibrant at the end. Like all the colors were perfect and like super impressive in that sense. So that was definitely one. That one's all over my Instagram page. So you can, if you go to my highlights, it's called the Lynn Valley Project. So you can see all those there. Yeah.
Scrolling through Instagram, you'll see a lot of different types of projects and everything from the basic to the very complex. What are some things that you see when either looking for inspiration or just seeing it showing up in your feed, or however, what are some things that you see that you wish you could give advice to people in terms of incorporating more elements into a space, or in terms of choosing different products? It could be like very specific advice, could be very general advice about just how we can take the next step in our designs in general. Do you have any advice that you could share based on things that you might generally see on Instagram?
Yeah, I think obviously, like you said, you're going to see very basic things. You're going to see very high-end, wild, crazy things too. Very basic jobs can be some of the most beautiful jobs in the end, as long as they're done right and they're done clean and if they're done, with skilled craftsmen, right? So materials and colors and everything like that. Like obviously I'm not a big fan of things that are too busy. Like if there's too much going on, I'm not sure it's going to stand the test of time. If it's like, crazy patterns of paving that are all blending in together and doing all this stuff, like to me, it's very cool and it looks super interesting and it's like really awesome. I kind of like to go a little bit more timeless with my stuff because it's like, I don't know if that's going to still be in style in 15 years or if somebody's going to go there and be like, I hate this, I'm going to rip it out now and do it again. So I'm a little bit safer in that bet, like with regards to my choices. But yeah, like when you go into the more complex projects, you can really see, who's got an eye and who and maybe who doesn't. But I think the major thing is like picking out craftsmanship. That's the major thing that really kills it for me. If somebody doesn't have it, like something done right, or if they didn't think about where they want to start their pattern and where they want to finish it, and they have weird cuts in weird places, or if the cuts just aren't, done super well, those are the things that really like kind of, really bother me a bit more. So I think like, spending a little bit more time just getting those little details right is just going to like really blow your space away from the most simple design to the most crazy one, right?
So in your designs, whether that was in Toronto or out in BC, were you taking into consideration those, where the pattern might start and end to ensure that the cuts are being planned appropriately in that space so that you're not going to have any awkward cuts? Is that how like detailed it was for your designs there?
Yeah, not always, but nobody's going to get it right every time the first time as well. Like I don't want anyone thinking that, oh, you have to do it a certain way. Like you're going to learn something new on every project as a designer and as a builder, right? You don't have to go and try and implement 30 new things on every project. Like do one thing at a time, right? But as I started to get more talent, like when I wasn't doing that, when I wasn't dialing things in like that, I would be on site and I'd be like, ooh, I see why I maybe should have spec'd a bigger stone for this, or I should have probably started the pattern here, because like, unfortunately, that's what's going to happen every time from time to time. But as you grow and as you get better, these are things. But definitely on all my drawings now, I spec like where to start the laying pattern from, depending on the job. But and even down to specking tile sizes and designing patios to fit. Like if I have a 10 by 12 patio and then the client really, really wants a stone that works with 10.5 by 12.5, like I will just adjust it in my drawing so that I know when my guys lay it, they're going to be like, oh yeah, the stone works out perfect. Like, and those are the things that are going to set your jobs apart from other jobs, right? If you're really taking that extra time to dial those little features in, it saves the guys time as well a little bit too, right? They're not cutting, like scribing in little parts and stuff, but yeah, having all those details thought out it's going to set you apart, right?
Yeah. Are there any products recently or that you've seen coming out that you were excited to really start to incorporate into your designs more, or you've already started to put into your designs, just products in general, whether that's, I mean, like the hardscape industry is always having new shapes, sizes, textures, colors come in. Lighting always has, new fixtures coming, things like this. Anything that really excites you that you have started to see, or even trends in general that you're excited to start to put into and implement into your designs?
Yeah, definitely. There's some cool products that are coming out. I mean, like I don't stay up to date so much on all the new stuff coming out all the time because like, I don't know. I have so many other things to do. It's hard for me to focus on all that as well. But when I'm designing a project, I'll usually design it and just click on a few different textures into the design. And then after that, I'll assign the products that I want to use. So I kind of just get the design done first, and then I will alter it with the products that I use. So that's kind of when I'm finding out about these new materials and stuff. Like I'll be like, okay, what do I want to use for this? Go on the website of whatever brand. And then if there's something new, I can be like, oh, that looks pretty cool. Let me throw that in and then scale it all properly and make sure it fits in this and that. So I kind of go on the fly a little bit like that. But yeah, like, I mean, in light, obviously, like they're doing like crazy stuff all the time. They're releasing these really cool fixtures all the time. And I'm always kind of going with their newer stuff too, just to try to test it out and see. Like they just released the Evo Flux light, and I think that's what it's called. And it's like this, like, I don't know if you've seen it. It's like basically LED strip lighting is what it looks like. So you can get like massive lengths and you have like uninterrupted light. So stuff like that's really cool, yeah, to play with.
I do want to backtrack a little bit here as we kind of start to wind things down here. Just something that came into my mind. When it comes to signing up a client and you're doing the design for them, are you initially taking a deposit for that design? And then once that design is done and approved by the client, then going to your contractor and saying, hey, what would you price this for? And then getting that price and then going back to the client? Or is this kind of done all at once? Can you speak on your process on that?
So just because I have a lot of experience with how much things cost, I'm usually able to give the clients a fairly good idea of what they're getting into before they even start the design, just so that they can understand that. With design costs, I kind of split it up into two now. So I'll charge for 3D upfront, and then I'll charge for all the construction plans as the second half. So whatever the price is for the 3D, I'll be like, give me all that right away, and I get that paid, and then I'll do the drawing, and then I'll be like, here's your plan, do a revision if needed, and then after that's done, then I'll get into the 2D and charge them for them at that point. With regards to estimates, I use the 3D model for all my estimates. It's really good and helpful. It gives me all the heights of the walls. I can click on faces and be like, okay, this is a 220 square foot wall. This is 470 feet of paving. And I can do all my takeoffs like that. So I do all my estimates myself. And then I put together all of the descriptions of everything that needs to be done. And then I host a Zoom call with my contractor, show him the model, show him the site photos, zoom around, and we assign all of our prices to everything at that point. And together we will he'll say, hey, 2,000 to do this. And I'll be like, okay, I think maybe you should go a little bit more for that. And he'd be like, yeah, you know what, maybe we'll go 25 on that. So then we kind of go back and forth, or, maybe he'll be like, 35 for that. And I'll be like, that sounds a little bit high, man. Like, it's only going to take about this long, and he'll be like, yeah, and we kind of dial it around like that. And then once I have all that done, then I present that myself directly to the client. And then we go from there, we sign them up and then take a deposit just to get all the materials ordered and everything like that. Pre-ordering materials is super important these days. So I'm telling people, give me a big deposit. I'm going to order all your stuff, pay for it all. It's all secured. And then we can start your project. So that's the way I've kind of been going about it this year. Yeah.
When a potential client calls you, what are some things that tell you that it's not the right client for you? Things that they say, things that you might ask to try to get that out of them. But how do you know it's not the right client fit for you?
People that try to convince me that I need to go to their house to look at their project for free because it is a big project, they say, that's always a red flag. I'm always like, no, I don't care how big your project is. I have valuable time and I'm not going to come there for free. That's a red flag. People that don't want to pay for design, that's obviously, like, for me, I don't even talk to anybody that doesn't want to pay for design, because in my process, if you don't do a design, then I'm not going to work with you, because I can't price anything without a drawing. There's no, I'm not going to go and be like, here's a rectangle patio and here's your price. Like, I don't even do any free estimates or anything like that. It's all like, you want to work with me, you do a design first, and then we go from there. So anybody who steps outside of my process, is a red flag, and I won't work with. Like, I have my process and I follow it. And sometimes it's tough, right? Like, sometimes they're like, hey, you should probably just come to the site, it's a pretty good chance you're going to get the job. And, I've broken my process before and I've lost out on jobs. I've also broken my process before and I've made, gotten the contract. So you really have to just I have to just know. Yeah. But yeah, it's not a perfect science, and do my best. But yeah, I like to follow my process.
Taylor, I want to draw on your experience with starting your own business, but actually more so with this question with your experience with LandCon. A lot of our audience are hardscape business owners, and they may be getting to a stage where they could use a designer salesperson. In your experience and with what you've learned, what is the best way they can go about hiring that person, but setting them up for success, setting up that designer salesperson for success in that position, so that they are an asset for their business and it's not going to crash and burn or anything like that? Anything with your experience that you could say, hey, if you allow your designer salesperson to do this, or if you put this in place, or you just kind of put faith in them, like what is that in your experience that helped you succeed?
I mean, it really depends on the experience of the person that you're hiring. So obviously it's going to be tough for a company to charge a lot of money for designs if they don't have a design portfolio. So when I started with Lancon, I didn't have much portfolio. So I would actually go into my car during the meeting with the client and sketch up something quickly in 3D and be like, what do you think of this? And then they would say whether or not they like it. And then usually they would be like, yeah, like that looks good enough. Like, let's get a price. And then I'll price from that. But I won't send them that. Like, I kind of keep that for myself. But at least I was showing them something that they could see. So that was kind of doing free design work, but without giving it away. And I built myself up to that point where now I can charge money for my design. So I have nothing against doing that. I think like if you need to put in some grind and do some free designs for people just to get your foot in the door, it's a great way to go about it. And then as you get more experience, then you should be charging for it. You shouldn't be giving away stuff for free if you have the experience and you have the justification to do that, because then people will take advantage, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like, I guess my best advice is like, see the experience of the person. If they've got a great portfolio, go for it, charge for it. If they're kind of learning a little bit, then let them kind of get their feet wet, let them try things and see what works and what doesn't. And yeah, if you're the business owner and you have certain materials that you like to work with or certain install methods that you use and certain, then maybe review everything with your designer as well as they go, so that you can make sure that, they're not proposing things that you're not comfortable with, or they're not proposing things that are going to be too expensive that you're not comfortable, providing to a client, right? If you want to try to get a job and this and that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Great advice. And I do have one last question for you here, and it's a big one. So I'll ask it and then I'll ramble on a little bit to give you some time to think about it. But I ask this to every business owner that comes on the show here. And I ask, what's that one thing you know now that you wish you knew from the very start? And that could be something from your personal life, business experience, anything in terms of something you know now that you wish you knew before you started in the industry, before you started your own business, whatever that might be. But what is that one thing you know now that you wish you knew from the start?
I've always kind of done this, but it's more apparent than ever now that I'm owning my own business. Be honest with everybody. Like, just be yourself, be organic, be honest. If there's something that's happening, tell the client, don't hold things back. Don't make up bull stories, sorry if I'm not supposed to swear on the show, but
you're good.
Just be yourself and be honest. Like that's going to get you where you need to be, because if you're trying to be somebody else or you're lying to people, like you're going to get caught up and you're going to fail. Like that's just the bottom line. So just really be yourself. And I've always sticking true to that myself. So it's really working for me. And I think it will work for everybody personally. So
excellent advice throughout the show here, Taylor. Thank you so much for your time here.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks a lot for having me. Yeah,
let our audience know where they can find out more about you. Where should they go to find out your designs, just to get some inspiration or reach out to you if they have any other questions, anything that you want to leave them with here?
Yeah, I mean, Instagram is kind of my go-to. I'm on there all the time doing lots of stories. You can see me on my day-to-day. You can see all my projects on there. You can watch the stories. You can watch the highlights. You can see pretty much everything I've done for this business. It's been in business for about 1.5 years now, so there's a decent amount of content on there, but we're only going up from here. So feel free to give me a follow. If you want to reach out, send me a DM. You can go to my website. It's just www.calumma.ca. Starting a furniture business now too. We're doing custom furniture, custom one-off pieces. So that's exciting as well. If anybody's looking for some indoor or outdoor furniture, I can hook you up with that too. So yeah, feel free to join my page and check me out.
And before I let you go, I do have actually one last question here. Where does the name Calumma come from?
So I wanted the brand to be kind of adaptive to different people, adapted to different landscapes and spaces. And I started going, adaptive design or adaptive landscapes, and that didn't sound cool. And I just started thinking, because I've had some pets before. I had chameleons when I was younger, and they're super cool, right? So chameleons they adapt their colors. They have really cool shapes. They're really beautiful. And their tail is like got really cool little spiral, right? So my logo is actually the chameleon's tail. And the idea behind the company is to be organic, to be adaptive to different people and everything like that. So Calumma is actually just a species of chameleon. So I went on Google and I was like, I don't want to make my name Chameleon Landscaping. So I typed in chameleon, different species, and then read through all these words. And then one of them said Calumma. And I was like, damn, that's a really cool word. people might not know how to say it, so that's kind of interesting. They might catch their eye a little bit. It's a beautiful looking word. It's nice to say. And then that's just how I got my name. So
excellent, man. Taylor, thank you so much for your time here.
Yeah, rad, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. Go check out Taylor at calumma.creative on Instagram. Connect with him there. Thank him for his time on today's episode. And while you're on Instagram, check out Inlight Design for outdoor lighting options. Check out their products that they have for that, or just get inspiration by following them at Inlight Design. As well as cycle_CPA if you need accountants, bookkeeping services, or CFO services for your business, especially as I'm sure we're all getting tied up in our businesses. Cycle CPA can help you with those. That's at cycle_CPA, and mention How to Hardscape for $200 off your services there. And we look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.